Um, Today I thought I would talk about, so I talked about a little bit snakes in the last video, but I didn't really talk about like what I wanted to hit on, and I felt like I kind of applied it a lot to like human life without really talking more about the archetype of snakes. And so I thought I could hit on that a little bit in this video. And also I got a new microphone. I'm gonna try and keep it in the shot just to help the audio be a little bit better. But yeah, we'll get started. So where I'd like to kind of like start with the archetype of snakes is that snakes are incredibly grounded beings. Like they have no legs, they're close to the ground. Even like any reptile on this planet, pretty much all are very close to the ground, and it represents the earthliness or their which earthliness, when it's unconscious, means serving desires rather than serving the well-being of your heart. It means materialistic, very goal-driven without checking into how achieving certain goals make us feel. And it can even be when we're disconnected from our heart, the earthliness becomes I'm feeding my fantasies I'm feeding feeding the well-being of my body. And snakes really are a representation of primalness, of reactivity, of aggressiveness, and a fear of connecting with their own heart. And the reactiveness, the aggression, the overly driven goal orientedness is all a distraction from turning within. And if you listen to any conspiracy theories, like there may or may not be reptile-like humans that are influencing this planet that have been evolving with humans and are just a little bit maybe under the earth or secretive at the moment that not a lot of the general population is aware of. And I understand that's a little bit of a conspiracy perspective, but when you start to think about the archetype of snakes and thinking about how our society is constructed, it does kind of make you think our society is very materialistic and goal oriented at the time, and as children we're taught to chase after our goals rather than and try and achieve a bunch of success without ever with a complete distraction of or complete not out of alignment with how that often is feeling to our heart, or how that is aligned with actually what we would hope to experience in this life or hope to achieve in this life. Right, we're fed a lot of goals, desires, and kind of images that of success, and we think that's what makes us happy. But in truth, we have to find what makes us happy to then set goals to find greater happiness achieving those goals. And so it's kind of backwards. And when we're thinking about the archetype of the snake, when the snake is unconscious, it is a being that lives to serve its desires, lives to serve its materialistic aspirations, and it also tries to control and manipulate things so that nothing gets too close to it, or so that it doesn't have to see how it's not really aligned with its own purpose. And the snake and reptiles are beings that can be the most cold-blooded and the most devoted to unconsciousness. And when when they finally stop reacting, when they finally, and they really have the greatest fear of vulnerability, because any fear, vulnerability is really just a connection to your own heart, and your darkness hides in your vulnerability. And when we're unwilling to be vulnerable, or like, let's say we're having a conversation with a friend and we ask them a deep question, they go, I don't want to talk about that, or I don't want to talk about that, my experience in my life. Oftentimes that's their unconsciousness saying, I feel so unworthy about this experience that I had, that I don't want you to see my weakness. But when we can't show people our weakness is when our inferiority becomes superiority, and we think that dominating or fighting fire with fire is real power, or leaning into that, the idea of that if I let people see too much of me, then they won't appreciate or accept me. Or but the people that won't appreciate it and accept you are the people that really you're not meant to have deeper relationships with. And when we are okay being vulnerable and allowing people to see our darkness, is when the people that are drawn to us and can handle deeper relationships go, oh my God, give me more of that, because now I know who you are. And now I know that if you can be safe to be vulnerable, you're someone that can be safe, I can be safe with, to have a deep relationship with. And 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 so vulnerability is actually what creates the safety for us to just show more wounded aspects of ourselves. And as those wounded aspects are seen, they're integrated. They remember, as they're seen, they go, oh, I don't need to feel so bad about the pain I survived. And I can let go of some of this pain rather than trying to hide this pain, which keeps me attached to the pain I'm in. And that, in the year of the snake, right? The year of the snake is a completion cycle. And one of the ways we can complete letting go of old versions of ourselves is allowing others to see more of our experience, which is something I've kind of been doing on this YouTube channel. But even in our relationships, it's like, okay, what can I talk about with my partner or with my close friends that I haven't really shown them the side of me yet, as a way of me allowing my pain to be seen, and helping me let go of, I need to hide this pain because this pain makes me inferior. And inferiority can only exist when we're willing to hide some of our experience or hiding aspects of ourselves. And when we let go of, it's okay for my shame, my pain, my guilt to be seen with people I can trust, is the moment that we let go some of our attachment to our pain, and we start to face more of our pain. And even just looking at our own pain and becoming curious about our shame and our guilt, and going, can I work with this rather than hide from it or pretend like I don't feel these feelings often, is when that pain integrates. And it doesn't mean we have to share everything with everyone. And being picky about who we share vulnerability with oftentimes allows us to like receive a little less rejection in our life. But if we are vulnerable with someone, and they go and they can't handle it, it's like, oh, maybe this person I was investing time into really isn't meant for me to be meant to have a deep relationship with. And then we get to decide, do I want a shallow relationship with this person, or not a relationship with this person at all? And using our depth as discernment. And so the snake is the most devoted to cold-bloodedness, and the most devoted to reactive, not facing itself, and constantly trying to prevent people from getting close to it. And when it can turn that tendency into letting go of its control, manipulation, and fear of vulnerability, is when it becomes the most fiery and passionate about healing its own darkness and healing the darkness of others. And it's why our Kundalini energy is represented as a snake. One, because we have some like reptile DNA within us, which if you're, if you watch and listen to enough channelers, like humanity was an experiment of a couple different species mixing their genetics together in order to create humans. And it's why we have a reptile brain. And it's also why we have Kundalini energy represented as a snake, because we have some reptile DNA within us. But it also is the snake, the snake also is a representation. It sits in our root, because you can't fully rise in consciousness until you learn to embrace your earthly life. And when we start to accept our desires, to and accept our unconsciousness, accept our pain, and go, I'm curious about this, and can I work with it, and can I show more people this side of myself or this pain, as a way of welcoming greater vulnerability and allowing this pain to be seen, is when that pain has less power over us. And the snake is really a master of of completing or healing pain. And the snake becomes, for how devoted it was to aggression and reactivity, becomes how devoted it is to healing and transformation. And it's why our Kundalini energy is a snake. And when we learn to master our desires, when we learn to work with our pain and say, this pain is something for me to work with, and to practice how good of a healer I am with this pain, even if I don't want to be a professional healer, but just a healer with myself. Because if I can master helping heal myself, is actually when I'm becoming more alive, and I'm bringing more of the energy of aliveness of my soul and the enlightenment of my soul into my body, which is what any human wants to experience, whether they're going to acknowledge that or not. Is we all want to feel more alive, and really aliveness is equal to happiness. And it's often what's misunderstood, is we think that these outside desires make us happy, and it's like, no, how alive and in your experience makes you happy. And you only can be alive and in your experience if you're going to integrate your unconsciousness, or the parts of yourselves that are on autopilot, that aren't very conscious in the moment. And when we're unconscious, we're not present, and we're not really experiencing our life. And the snake moves from unconsciousness to devoting. It's the most devoted to unconsciousness and the most devoted to consciousness. And they become masters at integrating darkness. And so in the year of the snake is a representation for light workers of completion, of shedding old parts of yourselves, and really working with your deepest pain, and integrating it. And this with snake is associated with the number 9, which 9 is completion. So this is like, a cycle is always in 13s. And the cycle, when we're in the year of the snake, it's always a year, it's always a 9 year, which means the last 9 years we are completing this chapter. And then 10 is becoming, like, all the experiences we've had in the last 9 years, and integrating those last 9 years fully in the year of the snake. So then 10, we can become the new version of ourselves. 11 is embodying the enlightenment, or embodying the wisdom and knowledge of the last, not as of the last cycle, or last 9 years we just experienced. And then 12 is the full completion and embodiment of the cycle, and 13 is returning back to heaven. and returning back to full alignment with the Divine Mother. And so, if we think about the year we're in as a year of we're processing our greatest darkness so we can become a new version of ourselves for next year, it kind of puts this year in a little bit perspective. And the snakes are, right, the most devoted to destruction and the most devoted to consciousness typically. And so when you think about them as an archetype, this year represents the light workers are going to be really working on completing old cycles, letting go of their unworthiness, inferiority, integrating their darkness this year. And on the flip side, those who are more aligned with unconsciousness are going to be their most reactive, most controlling and manipulating. And it's a completion year of 9, which means it's like their last fight before giving up, before surrendering into all the control, manipulation, aggression, and reactivity didn't really work. And it was more a pattern of me trying to avoid my own pain rather than and that's what 2025 really represents, and it's why it's been so chaotic up until this point of the beings that are trying to hide from their pain, or this is their year where they're going to hide from their pain the most. And if you think about, there's a lot of problems in this world, and there definitely is people that are trying to perpetuate these problems rather than solve them, or trying to keep humanity in a place where they're controllable rather than in a place of finding their freedom and power. And it's why, some of our systems like our economy and even like the school system and prison system are kind of in a way that keep people from healing and keep people trying to seek out external validation rather than learning to feel good about themselves and find what's truly in alignment for their greatest passion and what they would really like to achieve in this life. And there's people on this planet perpetuating that. And the year of the snake is their last fight of perpetuating that, because if you follow spirituality enough, you realize that we are in like the planet flows, and like I think people say, I think it might be 26,000 year cycles, and we're in that 13,000 like time period where we are completing a cycle. And really, if you listen to other psychics, they say about by like 2032 we'll be entering into a completely new cycle. And so this really is kind of the last fight of unconsciousness we're witnessing on a grand scale. And and so and so thinking about, okay, if this year is about integration, if this year is about letting go of old parts of myself and shedding those skins, one, I have to be willing to be vulnerable with myself. I have to start become curious with my shame, my guilt, and the parts of myself that judge people, or the parts of myself, whether that's my mind, my feelings, or areas of my body that are out of harmony. And can I do my best to bring greater healing and integration to those parts, even if it's just expressing how those parts feel more often, or giving those parts a little bit of time, more time and attention. And like, for me, I have injuries and I have symptoms, and that's the big thing. Like, I don't have a bunch of money to do a bunch of sound baths or explore a bunch of alternative healing methods. But for me, it's like, okay, how much more deeply can I listen to these parts, and can I start to become really curious of, like, for my injuries, it's like, okay, what exercises feel good to them and what exercises aggravate them. And for my symptoms, it's mostly about, can I just bring more presence to this area of my body and feel this pain? Because pain exists in stagnation and avoidance. And when we're willing to feel and be more present with areas of our body that are in pain, it doesn't mean that pain is going to be healed. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to find your way out of your pain tomorrow, but it but it doesn't also necessarily mean that those parts won't get a little bit better from you giving them more of your presence and your attention. And the snake really are snakes. If you ever like go to a zoo and witness snakes, they're really beings of incredible focus and incredibly evolved minds. And when that's out of balance with the heart, it becomes incredibly focused and devoted to unconsciousness. But when they bring it back into alignment with the heart, it becomes incredibly devoted and focused to healing unconsciousness. And it's the healing of unconsciousness that starts to transform the snake within us into more of a dragon like energy. And dragons breathe fire, which is representation of how much passion they have in their bodies. And you can only have a lot of passion in your body when you master your desires and are serving your conscious desires rather than your unconscious desires, which unconscious desires are the fantasies we have that really aren't serving our body. And it's also and it also be the subtle ways I bring my body harm or bring others harm. And in the last video I talk about sex versus sensuality, and like expressing sensuality as a way of expressing our primalness without having bad boundaries with people, and moving it into sex where we're swapping now our darkness and our light with people that probably isn't really the best for us to be swapping with. And, I'm not going to tell people not to have sex, but I think really just being discerning of, I really should only be having sex with someone who I believe is my like long-term committed soulmate relationship of my deepest love. And if it's not someone I really feel my deepest love with, or they have good qualities and they have some really bad qualities that some days make me go, I want to get away from this person, or I don't really want to be like this person, or they don't always feel the most loving and supportive to me, or sometimes they might even say things that feel kind of hurtful or harmful. And I question why I'm even in a relationship with this person, right? That's a relationship we're meant to outgrow and let go of most of the time. That isn't usually a representation of it's a soulmate relationship, because a soulmate is one that is in devotion to serving your heart, and we can only serve someone else's heart when we've learned to fully serve our own hearts. And sure, there is some relationships where people will meet before they've really fully mastered integrating their pain and finding wholeness, and they're meant to go through this relationship where they will both integrate all of their pain and find wholeness together, and they are a soulmate relationship. But also that is maybe that is maybe usually there's like incredible levels of harmony and understanding in relationships like that, and the little slip ups that people have, they're able to always use it as a way to grow together rather than growing apart. And usually when we're in a relationship that isn't with our soulmate, it usually started because we didn't want to be alone, or this person represented fantasies we had about, maybe they had a lot of money, or had some type of thing that we equated to, this would raise my status or help people see me as more worthy if I dated this person. Or or is kind of like the idea of, it's usually grounded in some level of fantasy, and oftentimes one partner is growing more than the other. And so if we're looking at a relationship and going, I feel like I'm outgrowing my partner, it's because you are. And when we're in a relationship where you guys are both equally growing together, you will know, like, the growth and steps I take, this person I'm with is matching. And if they don't feel like, if I'm with them for months and they don't really feel like they're matching my dance steps or matching my growth or matching my level of love and care, and they have negative qualities about them, okay, I'm in the wrong relationship. And so willing to be picky and discerning about who we let get close to us when we're sharing physical intimacy with people, because it's like sharing physical intimacy is like the unconscious form of vulnerability where I let people get too close and I form too strong attachments with people that really on the deepest level are holding me back rather than helping me, or are sharing energy with me that isn't really aligned with my purpose. Like whoever is our soulmate, they're going to help amplify your greatest mission and purpose on this planet, whether that's being an architect, being an artist, being an incredible parent, being an incredible human. And if we feel like we're with someone that amplifies our greatest purpose but also amplifies our greatest darkness, right, probably not a soulmate relationship, because they're triggering you more than they are helping you. And so I hope that perspective kind of like sure, like helps. Like sure, we don't need to be fully whole to find our deepest love in this life or to find our soulmate relationship, but it's also something of, it takes a lot of awareness to realize, okay, am I with someone because I have fantasies about this person? Am I with someone that is amplifying some of my darkness, or am I in a relationship that actually soothes my darkness and is actually amplifying my greatest growth? And that's to me what it means to be in a soulmate relationship. And I'm single, I'm not in a relationship. And, I don't have a lot of experience dating. And so take what I say as perspectives, and you can take what you like and forget what you don't. But something to think about and curious about, like, if what I'm saying, if there is some truth in it, how does this apply to my life? How does this apply to the person I'm dating? And can I use this as a reason to grow, not a reason to hide from growth, I guess would be. And thinking about, just to close it out with dragons, is dragons have wings because they've learned to love their humanness. And even Jesus, like Jesus on the cross was given a crown of thorns. And I've been thinking about it lately, and it's like, I don't even know if Jesus was really crucified. Like, a lot can happen in 2000 years, a lot can be rewritten, and I've been sitting it with lately. But it's interesting to think about the crucifixion more as a metaphor than an actual experience. And maybe it was an actual experience, I don't know. But the crown of thorns, when you think about it, they gave Jesus a crown of thorns. Jesus came it was a child of Mother Mary, and the energy that represents Mother Mary is the rose, and a rose has thorns, and it also has a beautiful smelling flower of love that that's usually associated with love. And even on this planet, I guess it would probably be one of the flowers most associated with romantic love. But the thorns of the flower, like the flower is not just the beautiful bulb, it's the whole stem and flower. And the rose is really a representation of, can you love your edges, because you only are aware enough not to poke other people with your edges when you're willing to bring love to your thorns. And Jesus was given a crown of thorns because he was a master of his humanness, which means, or like a king of his humanness, which means he mastered serving his conscious desires rather than his unconscious desires. He mastered serving the well-being of his body rather than serving the fantasies he had that really are just serving the cravings and desires within his body that are actually bad for his body. He mastered learning to fully love his humanness and fully bringing love to his pain, and recognizing that your demons are always just unconscious angels within you. Like you're the parts of yourself that you're like, I really wish I could change this part of me, is actually secret hidden blessings if we can learn to work with that pain and transform it. Like I was talking to someone last week, and he was talking about, he's just started a new relationship, and he's constantly thinking about this person and wishing he could think about this person a little bit less. And I was like, your thoughts of constantly hyper fixating on this person is your unconscious devotion. And when you can learn to honor your devotion and honor your hyperfixation is when that balances out, and your hyperfixation gets transformed and more to detached devotion for people. And so recognize, or even like with the snake, like the desire to achieve success and is very goal oriented, when we bring that into consciousness, becomes incredibly driven to fulfilling our mission and purpose on this planet. And we just have to bring it alignment with our heart, which is, does this feel like I'm moving in the right direction, or am I in a career, or I'm spending time with people that really feel like they're holding me back from my life purpose rather than amplifying it? And sometimes we need to spend time, like in our culture, just working a job that kind of sucks but gives us the income we need to actually build the career we want to build. And so recognizing that as well. But the unconscious drive becomes passion to fulfilling our mission and purpose on this planet. And so any demon you have within you, or any part of you that feels like disharmony or chaos, when we can work with it and bring love to it, is when it gets transformed into a blessing of consciousness within us, or a blessing of greater devotion, a blessing of greater fire and compassion for helping heal ourselves or others. And the drag, and to bring it, the dragon has wings because it's learned to fully love our humanness. And when you can love your humanness, is actually what creates the curiosity to work with your darkness and be able to transform that darkness into more and more of a beautiful aspect of yourself, or bringing out, or even, and instead of wasting energy and unconsciousness, it actually brings out more consciousness, which you could almost think of as more humanness. And so the snake transforms in the dragon for how it loves its desires, for how it loves its materialistic or goal-driven nature, and learning just to align that with the heart, which is, I serve my heart rather than I serve my mind, my fantasies and cravings that are really out of alignment with the well-being of my heart. And so that is the path of integration. And really, I would say that as we are, like, if you're listening to other intuitives or psychics, what you'll hear is dragon energy is coming back to the planet. And if we wish to embody more fiery passion, more aliveness, more love for our experience, and aligning ourselves with greater dragon energy, we have to learn how to serve our conscious desires, and have to learn how to love our thorns and love our humanness, rather than hide from those parts of ourselves, or pretend like we don't have thorns, or act superior to others because we're afraid of others seeing our inferiority. And when we can do that, we're actually aligning ourselves more with the dragon energy already here on this planet, and we will start to embody greater aliveness and power because of that. And really, the Kundalini energy, oftentimes people talk about it as like an experience that just happened to them, but we actually have conscious control over how quickly that evolves, and how quickly we find the soulmate with our own heart, which is a foreshadowing, if we desire a partner, for meeting that partner in our actual life. And you realize that this planet exists in a void space of infinite timelines and infinite possibilities, which is represented by space and a material in a 3D lens. But if you were to just think about the energy of the universe is like a giant womb where all exists. And when we align ourselves with greater divine feminine energy by integrating our darkness and playing and working with our demons, is when there becomes more and more infinite possibilities, and we actually are given the power to walk, or to see the timelines and know how to get to the timelines we'd like to walk on. Or we actually get to a place of being able to manifest instantaneously. And people do all these rituals trying to manifest what they want, but it's actually just aligning yourself with more divine feminine energy and becoming more harmless by being curious and playing with your demons and darkness through art and creativity and expression, and learning how to play with your primal desires rather than constantly trying to feed your primal desires. And that doesn't mean, we can't be sexual with a long-term committed relationship that really we feel on a deep level is our soulmate relationship. And I would even say that like there is probably a time and space when we're young to explore our primalness and sexual desires if we desire that. But really any exploration will just lead you to, I need to be picky and discerning about who I share that with. But recognizing that it's the aligning ourselves with the divine feminine that actually allows us to manifest instantaneously, actually allows us to see the timelines that are possibilities for us, or to create a different timeline that would be in alignment for what we'd actually like to experience in this life. And we're given that power when we become harmless by integrating our darkness, become by bringing the greatest love and play and curiosity to our darkened aspects, which really is what the snake represents, and it's what this year represents. And when we can do that, we'll shed the skin of old versions of ourselves to then step into greater power. And if we can really love our humanness, is when we're going to align ourselves with greater dragon energy, where we start to welcome our greatest power. And power isn't something we question, but it's or of how do I become more powerful, but it just becomes who we are, which is the invitation of 10 or the next year we're going to experience. And so I hope that brings some clarity. And thanks for your attention, thanks for listening. I really like that talk. That was cool. That was a cool talk for sure. But yeah, love you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.